And Burton will just say, it's got horses and cows in it, or the assessor will say, it's got horses and cows in it, and that's use, right? But it's not zoned for that, right? So I don't know if we'll ever 100% see compatibility between the two, but I think if we drew a picture and said, this is the use of it, but this is the actual zoning of it, and it was all on the same page.
That would be nice.
Well, and we've talked about before, the lenders are gonna have an easier time understanding those.
That becomes an
Seeing
issue.
it in one spot than having to go and search into different multi-spots to understand what.
Yeah, because they may not know that they have to go and do that.
Yeah,
And we honestly cannot be the only county or city that has this problem, right? I mean, it's,
Well, this is Nevada.
I don't know how it's done in other locations, but maybe that just needs to be looked at. I mean, isn't there an IT person for the county or something that can?
That'd be interesting to see what other counties deal with this kind of thing.
No.
Well, it's much more complicated in Clark County, I can tell you that. This is a breath of fresh air, just the issues I'm discussing,
Okay.
compared to what goes on in Clark
Oh,
or
I
Washoe
know.
County, so.
Yeah.
But one of the things I looked at, I have copies of different years of the zoning regulations, and if you look at in Lund, we're zoned 1 acre, but we're also zoned so we can have animals in our yard. Well, if you look at it closely and you wander around the town and look at what people have, some people have absolutely no animals, or they have a dog or a cat or something. And a neighbor across the way can have 5 or 6 horses. Now, if you look at the regulation, they're allowed 1 horse per half acre. 5 or 6 horses doesn't work on a 1 acre lot. And yet we have that situation, and that's something that that's part of the reason I brought this up, is because I would like to see us figure out exactly what needs to be fixed and fix it. If there's things that don't need to be fixed, we leave them alone. But there are situations where the zoning just doesn't work with the area that it's zoned in. And when they did the zoning back in whatever year that was, 1975 or something, I don't even remember what year it was, a long time ago. When they did all of this zoning, it was done very quickly to an extent, because the state said everybody will zone their area. Every county's got to do their zoning, and if they don't do it, the state's going to come in and zone it for you. And you didn't want that to happen, so they did it quickly and got the zoning done to make it compatible with what was going on at the time, but they didn't necessarily really look into it as far as they may have needed to get it fixed, so that everybody understood and that it was compatible with the areas that were zoned. So,
Well, what have Brian and Brad discussed about this, if anything, or do we need to have a discussion with them?
So our thought is, if you see a specific, you come across an issue in your regular job and you see that. We think it would be better if you reached out to us and we could, Brian, myself, and Brad, and whom, wherever the property is located, and we can work on that to create an agenda item that we can bring a little more fully developed to the meeting, instead of coming in and saying, okay, guys, what zone do we want to look at today? And then we talk about the zone for 45 minutes and nothing gets accomplished, and then we bring back a modified ordinance that Brian or I draft at the next meeting. Having the month in between each meetings, we have more time and ability to talk to you one-on-one, and the problem is, if there's more than a quorum, then it has to be an open meeting, so we don't want to be, violating that rule. But like I said, you see a different zoning issue than he sees because of where you are and what you're doing. So that is, our thought is it makes it a little more streamlined as to what exactly the problem is. And because no one wants to sit and read through every
Right.
zoning ordinance. I'm
Instead
sure you
of-
have to deal with it, but no one wants
You
to.
don't know how interesting they can get.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, instead of trying to find problems where there really is none, no complaints by the neighbors, I think, like you said, a case-by-case basis, and I'm sure you notice it more because of the line of work you're in.
Yeah, but most of these come up case by case,
Mhm.
so.
But a lot of cases, like you'll see a case and then it gets resolved, and that would benefit those future cases that have that same issue.
Right, you'll see a pattern, and we
Mhm.
can identify more easily.
We have, what, close to 4,000 parcels in general?
I thought he said 9,000.
9,000, okay.
Whatever
I
it's
I
worth.
totally stand corrected, yeah, 9. So, the point being then is, maybe more logically, instead of doing it by, taking it by zone and then trying to match zone to
Yeah.
parcel and stuff like this, take it as geographic block of area, and you just say, okay, we're addressing this entire block of area, and you just go through each one. And just say, okay, it's assessed at this, what's it zoned as, and you just make a notation on it.
Are you just, as for one of the items, or for the assessor's website? I guess I don't follow where you're.
Yeah, I'm looking at some way to efficiently, instead of going at it on a piecemeal basis, taking it at a block, geographic block at a time, and being able to go through the assessed areas and see where they match up and how they're zoned. What do you think, Brad? I mean,
Well, I guess I'm liking her concerns because these only come up rarely with me, and it just became a big issue for a couple of agents.
Right.
So my thought is, maybe we should, one or two, sit down with Brad and Brian and say, what'll be the best way in the future to resolve some of these issues? If it requires a variance for an individual, or to look
Think
at,
of a way to streamline it.
yeah, think of a way to make it easier for people to come in with their concerns. I don't wanna be the guy with the big stick stirring the pot and causing everybody to be pissed.
Yeah, and we don't need to go around and start rezoning all kinds of
No.
stuff. No, we just need to know what is use versus zone,
Right,
and how to, on each particular parcel.
how that can be,
Yeah.
how that can be identified, and if,
Yeah, use and zone for that parcel.
and I know there are ways for the assessor to put notes into their website, but it's just a matter of knowing what each thing means, and that's out of both Brian and my ability to know, to
Right.
do the assessor's regulations, but it's just, it's not a thing, it doesn't warrant extra meetings, I guess is where I'm getting at, because it can be assessed at each of these meetings with the different items that you see, or even if you wanted to bring up, we're gonna talk about, block B at this meeting, discussion only, get the ideas of what people are seeing, different things, but to spend a meeting just talking about the zoning doesn't seem like it would be the best benefit of our time, especially when it seems like they're very specific areas and issues that you guys are seeing.
Yeah, because talking about is not solving.
Right, it's not. And and if any changes have to occur, it'll come back to Brian or myself to be drafting those changes. So I think it's always, we like to know everything ahead of time, so we're not
Well, then,
caught off guard.
in that case, I don't mind trying to set up a meeting with Brian and Brad and say, here are the two issues that have come before me.
Yeah.
How are the best ways in the future to handle something like this?
Mm-hmm.
So I can talk to my clients and not stir the pot too much.
Right, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. But still get resolution for people so that they can, I still want economic growth for White Pine County.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all
Everybody
for you guys.
Yeah.
That's
That's our
exactly
goal.
how to go about
Right,
I know
yeah.
it's a challenge when you're trying to sell or someone's trying to buy a home.
One of
Take
the
your knee
things
off
I
my
looked
neck.
at-
Huh?
Take your knee off my neck. Go ahead and laugh.
One of the things I see in looking at the zoning for the Lund area is when you read down through it, some of it doesn't agree with something else over here, and there's this big long list of things that go for one area, but they don't go for this area, but they're the same basic kind of area.
Mhm.
So it gets a little confusing, and I think that happens throughout the county. If you go out into the rural areas outside of the city, well, all of the communities, if you go out to the ranches and stuff, there's things there that you look at and go, why would they even put that in there when it's a ranch out there? It's not a high-density place, but it's in there. So,
No, but I understand your concerns. I bring one or two issues up about zoning or variances, and you don't want to rewrite the whole code or zoning laws for the county just for those issues when they could be resolved otherwise.
and sometimes all it is just one issue out of a whole 2 or 3 pages of something, but it's something that causes heartburn if you're selling your home, or if you're buying a new home, or if you're remodeling your home, or whatever you're doing.
Right. And I truly believe that there are misconnections within all of the codes and regulations
Mhm.
in the county, just because of the changes throughout the years and the growth and all the rezoning that's going on. And, you know, that's, when you see that specific issue, give us a call and we can go through it all together. And that, or, you know, you and I, or you and Brian, whomever, and that's the way to get the ball rolling on the item, or on the specific item that you come across, because sometimes you don't come across anything until it hits you in the face, and then you realize that that's an issue that's going on.
Oh, one of the things that we have is the Mill Murray Street area where the lots are 25 by 100. And you think about trying to put a house on that property. When they zoned it that way, the homes were shotgun houses, you know, two rooms back to back,
Right.
and that's all there was, or sometimes they had a basement or a second story, which some of the houses are still there. And the pretty little houses, I've noticed people are putting siding on and fixing the houses up in that area. But it's something that the city has heartburn over, because people were wanting to build and get setbacks changed, and there's not much room for setback change when you've got a 25-foot wide yard and putting a house in it. So
Right.
it's something that, no matter where we go, we're going to have that type of an issue, just like the one that we dealt with tonight. So,
Well, that's one of the issues with tiny homes, and the fact that millennials are going to want smaller houses. We do have lot sizes that could be adapted, but you also have to have the fire codes and
right.
other issues addressed.
Fire codes are easy. You guys are the hard part.
I think this is the repercussion of not planning for the future. It's just something to keep in mind with newer developments, of course. Enforcing what the zones are, I think that's kind of been a problem, kind of led to what we are talking to now, you know.
Well, and part of it is you stop and think about it. Most of this zoning was set up in the 70s. I believe it was the 70s when it was done. Well, things have changed drastically in that.
You mean half a century later, things are not the same?
Yeah, you know, imagine that. So I think it's time for us to look, and probably if everybody had a copy of all the zoning so they knew what the regulations were, and just look through it, and if something grabbed them, mark it up and talk to the
Are those all,
powers that
are those on a
know, and
website?
move forward from
Are the
there.
zoning maps on a website?
Our
Are they
ordinance are
not?
on the website, the maps are,
Terrible.
There is a map on the assessor's website. I'm not, it does show zoning, I believe it has, I'm envisioning it in my head. I don't know if it's the most accurate, but it does have, at least on the assessor's website, it's the GIS map.
Sidwell, the GIS site, it does have the zoning on it, but it does say to call the building department to verify zoning, because a lot of it is not accurate, or some of it is not accurate. And I did send links to everybody at the beginning of the meetings, for the links to the city and the county, to where you can go in and read the zonings,
Right.
the definitions of those zonings.
I have a copy of the originals, because I've kept everything that I ever had with all the times I've been on the Regional Planning Commission, all maps and everything, so I have copies of all of that, so.
I would save that for the Nevada Historical Society.
Well, at this point, it's very, very useful, because everything is what it was back then.
Yeah.
But eventually, maybe I can reduce the number of maps I have, if he doesn't want to use them all.
Do we just need to like table this, or do we just not vote on it? Do we?
You can not vote on it, you can modify it to say, to something similar, but not setting up future meetings, it's up to you guys.
I would propose that we table this issue right now and have probably, I don't mind having further discussions with Brad and Brian about what else to bring back to the meetings to make it easier.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay, then,
I'm in agreement with that, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so I move that we table this issue.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded by Jason, and then we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of tabling it, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nope. Okay. Unanimous. Okay, item D. Schedule for possible action, approval of minutes from Regional Planning Commission meeting held May 20th, 2020. Have a chance to I went through it. Look good to me, so.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you, do a good job as always.
That's very thorough.
Yeah,
I can make it less thorough if you would like.
I noticed how thorough you were anyway.
And that's not the cutting.
So, okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay. Move into public comment. Period of vote for comments with the general public, if any, and discussions of those comments, no action may be taken on the matter raised under this item of agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. NRS 24.020, Paren 2, C3. Public comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the taxpayer paid thousands for a sound system you need to start using. I'm not gonna tell you again. You're violating the law. There are people in here who can't hear you. Leah, you have a nice voice, but it's not loud enough. Same with Jennifer. You gotta hear what people are saying, and we're not hearing. You folks talked about some of the zoning. Burton told you at the previous meeting, money is the problem. Not that he didn't understand you. You go onto the site, you see a zoning map, it's all blurry. If you can tell me what any one particular parcel is owned, I have to call the planning commission to get an answer. You talk about rules and regulations, but you haven't. This is the ingress, egress, Avenue D going on 93. That stop sign has been run over at least 4 times. That boulder's been pushed out onto the sidewalk. Rules and regulations. Why do you want to format new things when you can't even take care of what you have now? Clean that up. I've been coming to meetings for years, since I got back from Vietnam, 74. And you guys are talking the same thing. Gotta stop that. Here's another issue on Avenue F. County Commissioner has a business there. Commercial areas, sidewalk area is 5 foot from the curb. You don't put your sign on it, you don't put grass on it. You have regulations, let's take care of it. Here you have an issue of a boat within 50 feet, 25 feet of a playground. Broken glass, attractive nuisance. Why are you attracting kids close to something like this? Not fenced off, hasn't been that way for years. Again, you have rules and regulations, you need to address that first. Here's some offensive signs. We're spending thousands to clean up this community, promote tourism, and we've got this, you pooped, or grow some big canisters. That's gotta stop. Other than that, there's no need for folks like you. We have ordinances regarding the animals in the city limits. Across the street from where I live, 2 horses, I've told you that more than once. I've got the last 3 months of animal control report, not 1 citation. Keith Parsons had those horses forever. Gotta stop. Doesn't like the rules, change it. But change it for everybody, not selectively. And you haven't done that. I stopped earlier when I told you the city paid $16,000 for the curb and gutter along Van Camp's junkyard. Again, NRS forbids the city.
That's time, George.
Okay, 3 minutes.
You better get a larger clock. And I need some answers, Mr. Chairman. Other than that, it's gonna get more tested.
I got it.
Caroline, did you catch that? Put that
Any
on
more?
the agenda?
Any more public comment?
Gotta speak up when I didn't hear you.
And finish off on chapter 4.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have more public comment? Okay. Hearing, move on to the adjournment. Now, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjournment passes.
And I'll follow up with her and.
I'm going to
I had lots of fun back in the 70s. I worked for BBS during water.
Yes, I know that.
Hey,
I signed it, right?
Oh, you signed it, sent it back.
So I signed it, I don't know, but I signed it, because my wife does most of that, and so I guess I should make sure that that's in the family. So when I do the record.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chatchis reporting.